really starting to lose it. Being stuck in here, no end in sight. Maybe tonight is our break. We find Vecna, we end this once and for all, together.
Well, after 9 years and 5 seasons, which, that adds up, Stranger Things has officially ended. And no, there is no secret episode like people are saying there is. No, they're done. They are done. So I'm sick and tired of hearing that because it's so annoying. So my history, if you don't know, with Stranger Things is I've watched this show since it aired. Like, I was in high school, and I remember Stranger Things came out on a Friday, and then over the weekend I was watching it, and then when I returned to school on Monday, a whole bunch of kids were asking me, have you watched it yet? Have you seen it? Have you seen the whole show? And I'm like, shut up. Like, just shut up, okay? So it was like the next, big thing. So I remember, being super psyched about it. I really enjoyed the first season. And then 2 and 3 came out and kind of felt like they were taking a nap during that one. And then 4 came out and I was like, all right, this is a lot better. So where does that end us with 5? Do I personally think that season 5 is the best season of the bunch? No. It is, to me, it is smack in the middle. And I'll get to my reasons in a minute. So this season picks up a year after the events of season 4, where at the end of season 4, it's that big kind of cliffhanger where it's like, uh-oh, now Hawkins is kind of broken off away from the rest of civilization. So this cuts a year later where the town is trying to adjust with the military basically sealing off the whole town. And no one comes in, no one comes out. And the whole time, our titular heroes and characters have been trying to locate Vecna the whole time and having a really hard time with that, while also at the same time, Will is starting to get his stuff. 11 starts getting flashes from the past, and it ensues. It just ensues. And so, why do I think that this season is smack in the middle? Well, first off, is that when they were promoting this, they were saying, big stuff is going to happen, characters going to get killed off. And so there was this whole speculation surrounding this season where it's like, okay, who's going to get offed? To the point where I actually saw people betting on who was going to get offed. And I'm like, I just want to watch it, okay? I just want to watch it, okay? I want to see how this ends. And while I think it succeeded in some aspects, there are some aspects where I don't think they succeeded. And I'm gonna say this, that much like season 2 of Wednesday, I watched this with some family members, the whole season, and I think they enjoyed it more than I did. Because after certain episodes, and especially after the finale, they were all like, oh, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. And I was like, yeah, I enjoyed that. But then the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I still had some issues. I still had some problems. Now, the issues, or some of the positives out of the way. This, you can definitely tell, this is the most effects written out of all of them. And the effects, if you go back to something like season 1, the effects were there was just a handful of effects. But now here, it's every episode, there's so much effects work. And it's cool, it's cool to see, because it is very well done. They put a lot of money into it. I think they said it was a little over $100 million each episode or something like that. So they feel very much like a movie. But at the same time, that could be a negative because, if you start out with season 1 where it was kind of a handful of effects, now it's very much plastered all over the wall. It could get very distracting. And also some outcomes of certain characters, I liked. Now, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers because I don't want to be, that person, kind of like season 2 of Wednesday, where I kind of waited a little bit to talk about it because I saw some people spoiling it. Well, with this, there was no exception. Like an hour before I was going to start watching some episodes, I already saw a spoiler for that episode, and I was getting really sick and tired of that. But anyway, certain character motivations and parts, and especially how these characters ended, I did like some of them. Now, negative wise, this season felt safe, and that's the big problem I had with it, was that this season felt safe. If you go back to season 4, they didn't give a fuck. Like, they were like, oh no, everything's on the table. And so they set this bar that's like, yeah, anything goes. Like, literally, this character that you've liked, it was almost like they were about to pull something like Game of Thrones, where it's like, yeah, this character that you've seen for maybe 2 seasons and you've liked them, we're going to off them right now, and we don't care. It felt that way. So you actually felt danger for these characters. And because you had spent all this time liking them, building these characters, you liking these people, and to see them get offed is gonna suck. But it's like, yeah, this is it. We're done. So when this season came out, it felt really safe. There were some characters where it's like, they could have offed this character, and they didn't. Or if some characters they did off, was like, no one cared. No one cared about this one anyway. They were either not liked or no one cared about them. And so I didn't feel any real danger, especially, I won't say, but I won't say who it is, but in the finale, there's a part where it looks like a character's going to get offed, cause it's like this big, like, and then it cuts to black, and then they get saved. And I was like, I know, and this was before I saw any spoilers or anything like that. I was like, this person's going to get saved. I know it. And I was right. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. So it felt like season 4 was they took a lot more chances on season 4. With 5, they went, okay, we got to dial it back, when I don't think they really should have done that. And another thing too is that I was kind of going with it for a little bit, and then I started kind of noticing it a little bit more. Now I just can't really get it out of my head, is that the acting in this season is a little on the nose. It's not the best. When I go back to, season 1, and I thought everybody gave a really good performance, where with here, it was like, okay, all right. But, my biggest issue with this is that it did feel safe, where the way they were hyping it up, was very much like, oh, this is it, where it felt very like Avengers Endgame, where it was like, Infinity War set this bar so high where it's like, yeah, we're at this point now where it's like, yeah, anybody's on the table. Like, you don't know who. And so when Endgame came out and they killed off some people, and that it was like, yeah, it sucks, but we're at this point. And this season didn't do that. Like, they could have killed off a couple of characters and it would have made sense. I won't say who, but it just felt really safe. And while I enjoyed, what they, in the finale 2 was 2 hours. To me, it didn't need to be 2 hours. It felt like, okay, we're going to the first 45 minutes is going to be the big, like, climactic part, and then the last hour and 15 minutes, or I'm sorry, like the last maybe 45 minutes, last 45 minutes is going to be okay, this is what's happened, like, since then. And I'm like, we really need 45 minutes to do this? Like, you could have cut this in half. You could have said, this happened, and, it felt a little bit dragged out. Like they needed to get that 2-hour slot when they didn't need to really do that. They could have dialed it back to maybe an hour and a half, or hell, maybe even an hour and 40. I don't think they needed to be 2 hours. So final thoughts are, did I like this season? Yes. Was it the big epic conclusion that I feel like we should have gotten? No. And I also want to throw this out here. I understand a lot of people's, screaming and hollering at this one, but, Will's thing that he does in the episode before the finale, the thing that he does, it didn't really bother me. I understand where some people are coming with it, that like, oh, now they've done it. I wasn't really bothered by that. So I didn't really see it as a problem, but so I'm just going to move on, because if I linger on it, then there's going to be stuff. But do I think that this was the big finale that we wanted? No. To me, it felt too safe. But was it better than, I would say, seasons 2 and 3? Yes. Was it not as good as season 1 or 4? No. So like I said, season 1 to me is my favorite season, because the end of that season actually made me cry, because I was like, damn, the way it was done. And with here, I didn't cry, because I was like, I know who's going to get offed or not. And I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. Even after all this time, 10 years of watching the show, I'm like, I'm not feeling it like I did with season 1. And that's what I felt was really missing. It was the heart. It didn't really feel like the heart was there. So honestly, this season, maybe like a high average or a low grade, because I did like a lot of the stuff they were doing, but a lot of the time I also didn't like what they were doing. So it's a mixed bag. But as a finale, it was certainly better than a lot of other shows. But it was still like, you guys could have taken more leaps and bounds. You could have taken more chances. You could have slapped us in the face a little bit, instead of just slap our hand and we just look at you and just go, really? That's it? There was no slap in the face. It was slap on the hand. It wasn't even that hard. So, but now that the main series is done, and it is one thing to watch these kids grow up with the show, because it was quite a journey. We watched these kids grow up in this show, and we grew up with them, and that's something, and I think they nailed that. So, there's never going to be a new episode of the original Stranger Things series. We're going to get spinoffs, but there will be no new episode. I don't care if there's a secret finale. There's no new episode. So, sorry.